The pace of change isn't just fast, it's compounding minute by minute. And if you're still treating AI like some sort of exaggerated Google tool instead of a power tool, you're already behind. So in this episode, you're going to hear the simple 80-20 rule that unlocks elevated results, what augmented imagination actually means for your work, and the wild story about turning a near-death startup moment into a team win. So if you've been curious, skeptical, or just overwhelmed about this whole thing, this conversation will put you back in the driver's seat because the future favors the engaged, not the experts.
Hey there, welcome to Be Unmessable with the podcast. I'm your host, Jocelyn Herman-Saccio, and today my guest is Roy Vela, who is a deep tech geek with a passion for the convergence of science, technology, and humanity. And while he's worked at enterprises large and small, he is a startup junkie who loves the creative problem of solving early stage endeavors. So at the moment, he's focused on how AI can amplify human potential, which I'm really excited to get into this conversation with him. So let's welcome Roy Vela.
Thank you.
So tell us about how you got into this world. I mean, because obviously when you and I were, or I'm older than you, but when you were young, AI might not have even been a thought in your head. So how did you end up on this path to, amplify human potential through AI? And talk more about that.
Yeah, I don't think you're older than me, by the way, but we can compare notes later.
Oh, I think I am, but you never know.
Yeah. I would say two things in that regard. I've always been a deep tech geek, is how I describe it. I have always been fascinated and loved the convergence of science, technology, and humanity. I think that it's just amazing what we've been able to achieve as a species, and so I always find that fascinating. And then also, I would say just curiosity. I mean, part of being a deep tech geek is that I'm just insatiably curious. My wife likes to joke around that I'm sort of an inch deep but a mile wide in all of science. She's like, you can have a really impressive conversation with pretty much any scientist about what they're working on for about 15 minutes, and then you're gonna hit the edge, and that'll be the end of that. But yeah, I just in fact, I often have when I meet new people, I'll often end up a half hour, an hour in with them going, hold on a minute, like I don't know anything about you. Like you have just been asking me one question after another. I'm like, I'm sorry, it's just how I am. I'm a bit of an inquisitor. I'm like, so how did that happen? So why did you do that? So wait, when that happened, did that relate to like blah, blah, blah? That's the way my brain works. And so I've always been on the sort of bleeding edge, right? So the e-commerce as it was coming up, and then mobile. I was in fintech. My first company was in fintech, and then ended up in the early days of PayPal, and then mobile payments and commerce and banking, and then connected devices, smart home, and Internet of Things. And now the AI moment is sort of just the next step. I keep surfing out to the tip of the wave.
Yeah, it seems to be all things AI, and if you're not engaged with it, you're going to be left behind,
Yeah.
so to speak. So, when you look at your professional journey and, who you work with and the people that you're interacting with, what do you find is the biggest thing that gets in people's way of progress, especially in this whole world of AI, because a lot of people are afraid of it and they have consideration. So what's the stumbling block that stops people from being able to maximize the use of AI?
Yeah. Wow, there's a lot to say there. So backing up, I would say there's two AIs. There's real AI, 50, 60 years, machine learning, natural language processing, big data science, and then there's LLMs, which are the most recent, most popular manifestation. I tell people LLMs are cute compared to real AI. The science that's coming down the pipe right now is staggering, and we can talk about that if you want. LLMs are deeply misunderstood.
LLM. What's LLM?
LLMs, large language models, and the operative word is language.
Okay, like a ChatGPT.
ChatGPT,
like that kind of thing.
all of the chatbots are LLMs, right? Large language models, and that is the kind of more technical term for what chatbots are. And they're deeply misunderstood for a number of very good reasons. First of all, they appear to have just forgotten half a century of GUI, of graphical user interfaces, and went back to an MS-DOS command line. Like where it's like, do what you want, and you don't know what you want. Second, they appear to also have forgotten a couple of decades of search engine query response. People see an empty text box. The first thing they do is ask it a factual question and get the wrong answer, because LLMs do not have cut and paste. They make stuff up. They're a word at a time story, not unlike us. And finally, the name is horrible. Artificial sounds fake, not real, and intelligence implies thoughtfulness and correctness, which makes the wrong answer seem even worse. At the end of the day, LLMs are augmented imagination. They expand the possibility set, and they're a time compression machine. They enable iteration at scale in an unprecedented way. And
Yes.
And so the big problem people have is that they thought they were being sold an end product machine. The people thought, I'm going to hit enter and hit print. No. It's a beginning product machine. It gets the ball rolling. It might get you 50, 60, 70% of the way there. Your job as the human is to curate, edit, and make it what you want in the end. And that's kind of ironic, right? If I came to you and said, hey, I got this machine, I'll take you 50, 60, 70% of the way there, you'd be like, great. If I tell you, or if you believe it's 100% and you get 50, 60, 70, you're like, it doesn't work. Like, okay, it does work, and it works amazingly well. And so, I tell people, and then the final thing I would say, not the final thing, because I have so much to say, but I would say that
doubtful.
Yeah, it's doubtful, but the ability, you and I are auto calibration machines. What do I mean by that? We see each other, we hear accent, we see profile, and we adjust. If one of us was a not native English speaker, we would change the way we interact. There would be different cadence, tone, speed, vocabulary. Like, AI is blind and dumb, so it doesn't have any idea who it's talking to. So what does it do? It does the safe bet. It treats you like you're the mean, an IQ of 100, and it acts like it's the mean, an IQ of 100. And frankly, that's not very impressive. But the miracle and the magic of LLMs, of chatbots at the moment, is they can be whoever you want them to be, but you got to tell them. So I can come up to any of the bots and say, I have a PhD in particle astrophysics. I'd like to discuss quantum mechanics. You're Einstein. No problem. The bot can have that conversation. You and I may not follow it, but it can have it without an issue. And so part of this magic, I tell people on the 80-20, spend 80% of your time on context, then 20% on content. So first, here's who I am. Born, raised, educated, worked. Here's my current role. Here's what I'm working on at the moment. Here's who you are. You're my target client in this geography with this many employees facing these challenges, trying to achieve these objectives. Like tell it who you want it to be, and also tell it how you want to act in this interaction. Be professional, be concise, be accurate, be expansive, whatever it is, and then say, okay, now that we're loaded up and you know who I am and you know who I want you to be, here's the problem I'm working on. And I'd like your help on it. And it's a game changer. Like, adding context to the equation changes everything. And if not, you're getting the mean. You're getting an IQ of 100, and it's treating like you have an IQ of 100. But it is just a massive, massive difference to tell the bot who you. And this is the other thing I tell people, which is unprecedented. It's never happened before. So let's say my target market is mothers of two in the Midwest with an average annual income of blank. I have a description. I know my ICP. I know my ideal customer profile. I know what I want. I can give it that. Say, here's who you are. Okay, here's my marketing campaign. How do you react? What do you think about it? It's kind of magic. It can be anyone you want it to be.
And it can even be you, I would say.
Totally.
I know I'm not doing this because I can't get my head around it, but I know friends of mine who are coaches who are training AI bots to be coaches so that people can ask. To me, I can't get to the source of that and doing that. But I was like, wow, that's amazing. That'll save you a lot of time. I like talking to people, so I think I'll keep doing that. But
but you're only so scalable because you're limited by the same factor we all are, time. There's only so much time in the day. You will, in the very near future, be able to hire Tony Robbins, and you either get the digital Tony Robbins for this price or the real Tony Robbins for this other price. And the digital Tony Robbins can really interact with as many people as want. Right. And is it the real Tony Robbins?
But how
it's 80-90% there.
It's transcripts of Tony Robbins that, are educating that bot, or it's his books,
it's
or
everything.
how would he train it?
It's all your existing content. Yeah. You give it all your content, and also you then say, okay, interview me for places where you feel you have holes, where you don't know the right answer. So if my typical client asks these 100 questions, do you feel capable of answering them all sufficiently with what you know about me? Or if not, ask me what you need to know. I mean, this is the other thing. It's like, and that's kind of when I said it was a blinking cursor. It's too much of a blank sheet for most people. They don't really appreciate the depth and the possibility, right? I'll give you a great, somewhat banal example, but my youngest, when she was a freshman, she made the varsity sprinting team in the fall. Congratulations, you're fast. In the winter, she then ended up running distance and made a bunch of really close girlfriends on the distance team. Come spring, she got all stressed out. She's like, wait a minute, do I have to go back to sprinting because I'm varsity, or can I stick with my friends? Like, what should I do? She asked her siblings, parents, coaches. She was just totally stressed. I don't know if you know Pi. There's a company called Inflection.ai. The founder of Google DeepMind started Inflection, and now he runs Microsoft AI, Mustafa Suleyman. Pi is the product of Inflection AI is Pi, and it is meant to be an empathic AI. You're supposed to talk to it and interact with it on a really interpersonal level. So she's my kid. She knows about AI. So she goes to Pi and says, hey, Pi, I got this problem. Can we talk about it? I'm an AI guy. I thought for sure Pi would say, here's the pros, here's the cons. Good luck with your decision. Pi said, oh, that's a tough problem. I see why you want to talk about it. Here's what you should do. My daughter was like, what about this? And what about that? She had what about college? What about she had given it a lot of context, but not everything. She challenged it and said, and Pi's like, yeah, no, you bring up some really good points. I hear why you would say that. I still think like Pi stuck to its guns. I think I'm a fairly good parent, but I'll tell you, Pi knocked it out of the park. Pi said, wow. You know what? Congratulations on being varsity. That's great. But friends are more important in life. Stick with your friends. And I was like, why didn't I think of that? I'm like, that's the right answer.
Well, we as human beings have considerations. I guess AI doesn't have those considerations to skew or suppress or limit its responses.
I mean, I'll tell you right now, as of that experience, 100% confident everyone will be talking to AI about everything, about everything they want. And already we've had, testing and scoring that people find the AI more empathic, more patient, more, again, it's the doctor's in a bit of a rush, the coaching, you have a time limit. We're coming up on our time, blah, blah. Do I think that humans should interact with humans for therapy, for advice, for coaching, whatever? Certainly. Do I think that between nothing and AI, like, okay, so nothing, AI wins, human wins still, but everyone's going to be talking to AI. There's just no question.
Yeah.
And it's very conversant.
And to make stuff affordable, because you can't always afford to hire a therapist or a coach or, especially a high performance coach, so this is a cost effective way of getting some guidance, I would say.
Yeah, by the way, it might be Tony Robbins' actual avatar that he created, but at the moment, any public figure, you can tell ChatGPT, you're Tony Robbins. That's all you need to say. There's plenty of content.
And you don't need to upload stuff from Tony. It's just, Well, it's funny you should say that because I have a client who's in my mastery program this year. And in December, she registered for it, right? And started in February. And we had our first call in February. And she said, "You're not going to believe what happened." And I said, "Well, what happened?" She said, "I was using AI to determine what I should be focusing on this year.
Yeah.
And one of the things it told me to do was work with the coach, Jocelyn Saccio." And I was like, "How is that even possible? How does ChatGPT even know who I am?" But apparently it's out there.
It knows what we know. It searched the internet. And that's the other thing in education. I just happened to spend a bunch of time in my kids' high school talking to students, parents, and teachers. And, it was a bit of an eye-opener for a bunch of them. I'm like, if you're studying Abraham Lincoln in class, you can send the kids home to have a chat with Abraham Lincoln about
Now you're freaking me out.
You can say,
"Can I talk to Barry Manilow?" That's all I care.
Yes.
If I can talk to Barry Manilow, I'm in.
Yes, you can talk to Barry Manilow. But I mean, honestly, you can say to Abraham Lincoln, tell me about your life. Where were you born and raised? Do you have siblings? What do you eat? What do you like? Blah, blah, blah. You can just have a regular conversation with Abraham Lincoln. Any public figure that there's sufficient content on, you can interact with.
I mean, it's kind of amazing, but it's also a little creepy. I have to say that's a little creepy because why? Because there's so much isolation happening with people right now. And it almost seems like it's going to, I know it's kind of context neutral, right? But if in the world where you're trying to not have to get out and connect with people, it sort of replaces that human connection, but not really.
Are people trying to not get out and connect with people, or is it just...
I think people are afraid sometimes, or they're hesitant, or they're just, in a groove or in a rut of just
maybe
sitting at their desk and,
Yeah, I mean, I think human interaction trumps, but if you're not talking to anybody, it's much better to talk to somebody, even if that somebody doesn't have a body. Right? Yeah. And by the way, on the existential thing, people talking about fear of AI and blah, 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 and all the dystopian taking over the world, the reason is pretty simple in my perspective. And I actually have it's an article called The Goldilocks Zone that I'm willing to share with whoever wants it.
Good.
But in the
I'll
end,
put it in the notes.
Yeah, it's very, very challenging for us to separate biology from intelligence. Why? Because biology and intelligence are completely intertwined. There's no such thing. Up until a moment ago, biology and intelligence were inextricably linked. But when you hear the dystopian stuff and you look at it, if you just scratch at the surface, most of it's biology. The urge to persist, to grow, to expand, to replicate, all of the desires and drives are hormonal. They are biological byproduct that my intellect happens to be integrated to and anchored in biology. But it's quite possible, and I actually think the most likely scenario, that it's just intelligent. It's not trying to replicate. It could give a shit if you turn it on or off. It doesn't have any of those biological urges. No serotonin, dopamine, testosterone, estrogen, nothing. None of the biological baggage is what I say. On intellect, it's just freaking smart, and it's just there trying to help us with our problems. And anything we present to it, it's willing to be whoever you ask it to be, blah, blah, blah. And so, and it's just really hard. People are like, oh, but then it's going to copy itself and grow and expand. And if we have AI that does want to persist, expand, grow, it's because we asked it to.
Right.
Not because it has any internal drives, right? It's not trying to do anything. So anyway, that's my opinion on that. I mean, I think so it is quite possible. So again, the human is the problem. It is quite possible to have a human that says, hey, I need you to never be turned off. And I need you to expand and grow and blah, blah, blah. Okay, then you have an AI who's obeying its objectives that you gave it. But inherently in itself, it has none of that.
So then you start living out those movies where, they're like the robot, iRobot, or whatever all that stuff is, where it starts to have a mind of its own, so to speak, or
Yeah, it's
a
classic,
survival instinct of its
Iron
own.
Man and Ultron, and Ultron was tasked with peace on Earth. Well, what disrupts peace on Earth? Humans, right? So you got to be careful.
Well, it's kind of like, I actually can relate this to dogs, right? Because, my father, who's 91, just got a new dog, but the dog is like 14 years old and trained. Thank God. Because my parents, I love them. They're amazing. They are horrible at training dogs. So every dog they've ever had is just like the worst dog in the world, right? Like you just are like, oh my God, this dog, you can't eat around the dog. You can't,
Right.
whatever. But it's not the dog. It's
No.
the humans. The
100%.
humans are the ones who need to be trained to
100%.
train. And it's the same thing I find with CEOs and founders is like, being the lid on their own business, because they're not great at training and delegating and giving things away.
Sure.
Because they have that biological baggage of the attachments and the considerations and all of that. So it'd be an interesting experiment with my entrepreneur clients to have them consult AI on what things they should give away and delegate rather than consulting their brain.
Totally. No, I mean, and that's, the expansiveness. When I say augmented imagination, I really mean that. Like, I am locked in, whether I like it or not. I am locked in to who I am. Born, raised, I have all the baggage of American, native English speaker, male, cis, father, blah, blah, blah. All those traits are bringing in my view. Now, I can be anyone. I can have the view. I can literally, for the first time in human history, walk in your shoes. I can describe as much as possible about the other, and then hear directly from them, and interact with them in that regard. Like, it's kind of a miracle, but I think most people are kind of missing that, right? Like, they're not realizing the power of it. Again, not unlike biological baggage, we've never had that opportunity. I do not start my conversation with you and say, here's who I am and here's who you are. We never tell the other who they are. But if you don't now, you're getting bland, middle of the mean curve. You're getting the generic average of humanity. Whereas you can get whatever you want.
Amazing. Really amazing. So one of the questions that I ask everybody on the show is, given the name of the show is Be Unmessable With, which really means not being tough or something. It's really about being able to stay on track and fulfill your vision and not get thrown by whatever life throws at you.
Sure.
So if you look back in your life, Roy, like what's a time where you were dealing with a really difficult situation or challenge, and it could have taken you out. It could have thrown you, out of the game, but you were able to transcend it and emerge what, in my language, unmessable with.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I would say, I can give a very specific story. My first startup, we were raising money in April of 2000, and that's just when the market was turning. Like literally that month is when the first internet crash happened, and we had 15 million of VC coming in, and we were like, everything good, and they're like, yeah. 2 weeks before the close, they pulled the funding. And so
that would be a messable with moment,
right? So we were left with basically less than a month of burn, and kind of no ability to raise money. I mean, we had gone through due diligence, everything. It was all done. Like we were ready. We had stopped our other conversations because they were leading the round, blah, blah, blah. But we realized that our team was awesome and our team wanted to stick together. And I proposed a employee compensation deferral program. So we said to our employees, look, we can't raise money, but we're gonna sell. There are a number of adjacent or competitive firms that would be interested in what we've built. If you defer however much of your salary you can defer, we're going to give you a 50% bonus on it when we get acquired. 95% of our employees deferred an average of I'm sorry, 99% of our employees deferred an average of 95% of their salary. So our burn went from 6 weeks to 6 months. And all the founders, we took no salary. So the founders stopped taking salary. The rest of the employees, and I'll tell you, so we ended up talking to about 30 companies. We had 5 serious conversations, and we ended up getting acquired. And those serious conversations all started with, wow, your team like really wants to stay together. And we're like, yeah, we have a great team. We're killing it. And we, it's just bad timing and blah, blah, blah. And actually one of the women on our team ended up staying there for decades. She was there a long time. Yeah. And married one of my co-founders too. It was a crazy.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's one way of keeping people around.
Well, he wasn't there. He went on to other things, but she stayed. Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so, we it's almost sort of like, okay, so look at the assets you have, when, and it's, I mean, I'm not making things up when I say lemons and lemonade, like, what do you got? What can you make with it? Right. Like, that is appealing, to your target audience, and at that point, the target audience was competitors, collaborators who might want to just bring us into the fold. We also happened to have just rebranded ourselves, and the acquirer, we had a better brand than the acquirer. So the two companies merged and took our brand and our URL, which was funny because it sort of looked like we acquired them, but it's like, no, they acquired us. But,
Yeah, really, the illusion. But tell me, given the team really rallied like that, 99% of anybody in any group, that's remarkable in anything.
Yeah.
So what would you say is the source of that sense of team or ownership, or what had them opt into the plan?
Yeah. I don't think it existed at the time, but a good articulation of it, I think, is Daniel Pink's drive. So autonomy, mastery, and purpose, right? So autonomy, I wake up, doing what I know needs to be done because I'm a grown up. Mastery, I get to do what I like to do and what I'm good at, and where I can demonstrate my mastery. And purpose, that, we are all aligned on our purpose, and, and that it's very clear the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that we're targeting. I don't think, I'm trying to remember when Daniel wrote Drive, but that's how I summarize it. I tell people all the time who I hire, I'm like, beware of what you enjoy in front of me, because I'm going to give you more of that. And the thing that you're suffering with, I'm going to give it to him because he loves it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you shouldn't be, when I advise young people, I'm like, don't suffer. Life's too short. The journey is the reward. Like, you should be doing what you enjoy doing, and it tends to correlate very strongly with what you're good at. Like, like what you're good at and what you enjoy. It's a classic ikigai, blah, blah, blah. But like at the end of the day, like, you need to be demonstrating your mastery with a high level of autonomy and to a shared purpose. And when you do that, your time flies. You're like, oh my God, where'd the day go? This kind of thing. And you're hopping out of bed and you're having trouble sleeping because you're like, you're too excited about what's going on. To go. Yeah,
exactly. It's like if you do something you love, you never work a day in your life.
Exactly.
As they say,
and that whole flow experience is amazing. Sports is a really good demonstrative thing to watch. When you see people, in flow with the blind, and I often with my teams talk about the blind pass. In basketball, a blind pass means I'm looking over there, but I pass over here. And how can I do that? Well, I can do it because we are actually a super organism. I know. They know what I'm doing. I know what they're doing. In the office, a blind pass means I know that when I pass you something, I don't need to describe what's going on. You catch the ball midair and you continue, right? Like, and that, there's a bunch of studies and research on flow and all of that. And, people love being in flow. Being in flow is an excellent experience, and being able to make a blind pass that works. And by the way, it's also risky. There are tons of blind passes in the NBA that go straight into the audience. They go straight into
That's right, exactly.
You thought you were in flow and you weren't, but on the 80-20, 80% of the time it works and it's great. And Yeah. So
And it's where the magic is. It's where the magic is.
That's where the magic is. Exactly. The highlights on the film are the blind passes that work, and also the ones that don't work. They're like, yeah, you just toss it right into the crowd.
The fumbles. Yes, exactly. Totally. It's true. The highs and the lows. But then there's an opportunity to debrief the breakdowns and correct your performance. Yeah. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Is there someplace where people can find you? What's the I could, if you send me the link to that article that you were talking about, I can definitely put it in the show notes. But what other links should we be looking for you at?
I'm blessed with a very unique name, so I'm super easy to find. Like Roy Vella, you take out the space, LinkedIn, Roy Vella at Gmail, Roy Vella, like it
everywhere. We'll put it all in there. So
I'm super easy to find. Yeah. And yeah, no, I mean, the only thing we didn't talk about, which I think is just relevant, and we can share links in the show notes, is I say we're in exponential times. So in fact, there's a little piece on my LinkedIn profile called Exponential Everywhere. And the reality is, if you look at the curves, humanity is just loaded with exponential curves, from population to urbanization to technology, and what happened in 2022 in the AI moment is really exponential in the computing world. And it ends up that everything's a computer at this point, right? Like there's a chip in everything. When I take my car to the shop, he doesn't pop the hood. He sits in the driver's seat and plugs my car into his laptop. Like everything's a computer. It just looks different because it manifests in different forms. And so I tell people, you gotta embrace what's happening because it's not going to slow down. If anything, it's speeding up. And we only alluded to it lightly, but the science that's happening right now is unprecedented because it's a time compression machine. Science is all about iteration, and now we can iterate at a scale that we just couldn't conceive before. And the discoveries, I mean, my LinkedIn, for instance, the posts in my LinkedIn, I'd say they're half science at least, because I just keep getting knocked over. I'm like, what? We did what? Huh? It's pretty incredible times in that regard. So if I left anyone with a message, I would say that's the message. You got to embrace, because this pace of change, not change itself, the pace of change is increasing, and it's not going to slow down.
Yeah, I guess we got to get in the game. Get in the game, because it's going to happen whether we're in it or not.
Well, if your expectation is changed, then you're unmessable with, right? Right?
There you go. That is accurate. Expectations are one of the biggest things that mess with people, right? So update your expectations.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Roy. And thanks for listening, everybody, or watching, depending on how you get your podcasts. And if today, you learned something, which I can't imagine you didn't, but you learned something, you found it useful, please rate, review, and share the episode. Do all the things you're supposed to do with podcasts, because I'm sure there's some AI machine that then takes that information and impacts the algorithm and does things to make a difference with people. So thanks again, and we'll see you on the next episode of Be Unmessable With.
The moment that hit me was Roy's reminder that AI doesn't replace you, it reveals you. It mirrors your thinking, your creativity, your limits, and your leadership. So this is what that means, though. If you're still questioning whether or not you're good enough to keep up with this wave, that's the real thing holding you back. The question, not the wave. So here's your next move. Download my free imposter syndrome process. It's going to transcend you out of that whole thing, and the link is right below. It'll walk you step by step through how to turn doubt into data and use it as fuel to create from confidence instead of comparison. And then keep watching. Watch the next video right now, because the only way to beat imposter syndrome is to keep creating, growing, expanding, and showing up.